In most of the organization, how they do it right is they don't focus on skills or activities. For example, if you give an employee goal that you're going to make 50 cold calls per day, that's very transactional metrics. But when we give them the goal that your goal is to earn a revenue of $1 million per month, no, equation become different. That employee can possibly earn that much revenue just by making one right call or probably 1,000 cold calls. It doesn't really matter. So what happens is that leaders have to focus, number one, instead of on activities, they need to focus on the outcomes. Because when we give the outcomes to employees and measure employees against the outcomes, then everything else lines up nicely. Then training department, managers, and other, the leaders and everybody in the organization, they don't focus on steps, activities, or skills. They focus on ability to produce outcome.
Talking with the experts.
Hello and welcome to Talking with the Experts. My name's Rose Davidson from rosedavidson.com. Talking with the Experts is about all things business by business owners for business owners, and you can catch it on all good podcasting streaming platforms and on YouTube. And today our topic is how managers and leaders can speed up employee development. And I will be discussing this with Dr. Raman K Attri, and he's from Singapore and his business is XpertX. So welcome, Dr. Raman, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Rose. It's my pleasure to be at your show. Appreciate it.
Oh, wonderful. So Dr. Raman is a performance scientist and the world's leading authority on the science of speed in professional learning and performance. Undeterred by his permanent disability since childhood, he transformed his ability to walk into his niche expertise to teach others how to walk faster in their professional world. Equipped with over 2 decades of vast research and corporate experience, he guides leaders and professionals on proven strategies to shorten time to proficiency of the workplace. Now that's we were just discussing that moments ago that a lot of employers do not think that employee development is a thing that they should be doing. So I think this is a great topic and very timely with the present environment. So tell me a little bit about your background.
My background is fundamentally I'm an engineer, but as you just mentioned that I got polio when I was 6 months old. So I think it is contextual that I was born in India, so there were no facilities there. So that's where I actually kind of lost my ability to walk. And then as I grew up, I thought that that's the exact same thing is what I'm going to master. But obviously, I couldn't master it while walking, but I walked faster in some other areas like how to learn fast, how to develop your performance faster. And eventually, I kind of honed that one as a science in workplace and in workforce context, how leaders and managers can improve the performance, their own performance as well as their team's performance. But it has been a long journey. Fundamentally, I was trained to be an electronics engineer, and I joined as a technology scientist long back when I came out of university. I spent there 10 years, but then I figured that I'm going to need to go back to my basic passion of learning. So that's how I kind of detoured and in current profession now.
Yeah, I think so. You just have to follow your passion. It doesn't matter how much education you have. I think, you eventually find that following your passion brings you much more fulfillment than doing something that you're trained in doing. So
That's
what I found
correct.
anyway.
Yeah,
So I
you're
guess
right.
how can managers and leaders speed up employee development if it's not in their long-term plans?
Yeah, that's a good question, Rose. I did a research with over 70 or 80 world-class organizations. And I talked to them and these organizations were those who indeed made a mark in terms of speeding up their employee development. And my fundamental investigation was how they did it. And the most interesting piece that came about is how their managers and leaders behaved. And I figured out that they were following a different kind of protocol. One thing they told me is that if two teams are equal in everything like resources, cash, funds, opportunities, their managers have either the make role or break role in terms of speeding up their employees or their workforce. So managers don't sometimes understand that role. Managers are the center point of the whole ecosystem um, around the employee. But most of the time, managers and leaders are too busy participating in meetings, driving their presentations, doing some strategic plans. So most importantly, they miss out on the employee development. And also part of that one is because they're too busy. Most of the time, they leave their employees at the mercy of training departments. Their expectation has been always probably the trainers are going to take care of all the skills these employees are going to need. And what happens is the training department do not have direct goals. They have not been given the outcome these employees should master. So the training department will work on their own objective, what we call learning objectives. So the goal of learning objective is only to pass certain pen type of exams. That's not going to give the capabilities to our employees to really shine at their job. So because of these disconnect, what happens is employees still have to go back to their workplace and figure it out. And in most cases, you will also see manager will say, forget whatever you learned in training. I'm going to teach you how the things are actually done in our way. So now they are already contradicting what the skills employees learn. So this entire loop result into much longer time to development of employees. I'll give you some examples in some of the industries like semicon, which is very hot industry right now. It takes about 3 years for a development engineers to come up to fully proficient. 3 years is a massive period, and customer want next generation smartphone, next generation laptop and gadget now, not after 3 years. So it's a massive period, but managers sometimes feel that leaving it to training is the best bet. But in reality, what I found is that is the real problem.
Yeah, I agree. I found that working in government enterprises or organisations, they were the most guilty. Managers just tended to leave it up to the training department to train the staff, whether you needed a particular type of training or you didn't need. You just were forced to do it because it was the training department's agenda to get everyone trained in something specific. And yeah, so targeted training to suit each individual employee didn't happen. And managers, if me as an employee went to the manager and said, look, I'd like to have this type of training, because it'll enhance my job, but they weren't prepared to send me on this particular type of training because they didn't see that it was necessary. And it's quite disheartening as an employee, I think, to find that your manager really doesn't care just about, staff development in any way.
Yeah, that's pretty good observation. That's exactly what happens. In fact, the most of the organizations don't teach their managers how to get the involvement with employees. The best in best organization, what they do is they get their managers and leaders to get involved in the entire training cycle. First, they sit with their training designer and trainer and they ask, what exactly you're going to teach my employee? Tell me, and why is it even relevant to this job? My job goals are this one. I need these guys to produce probably, let's say that $1 million of sales every month. How your training curriculum is going to help achieve that? And then more often manager would find when they take the involvement that the training curriculum is set up like chapters. Chapter is negotiation skills, persuasion skills. There will be customer interface skills. But all those skills are not going to lead to $1 million sales per month. And you need an entirely different thought process. So part of this involvement is when managers sit with training designer, they will find training is not going to help. And then part of that, if they feel that, okay, I'm not very sure, many organizations have their managers sit in the same training program with employee, probably first half day or probably first day of the training. And that has changed the whole perspective because now employee feel that my manager cares about me, that he wants to understand whether all this is going to help me or not. On the other side, manager will get to know, wait a second, we have been spending time on first day, slide after slide, slide after slide. How it's going to help my employee to generate $1 million sales per month? So that's where the whole discussion comes in. Are we doing it right? So that involvement part is always missing. And more often, as I said, leaders get their manager to participate in meeting, get them busy with the all strategic plans, presentation slide. They don't have this much time to spend with their employees.
No, they don't, and it's unfortunate that a lot of organisations don't target training to suit the I guess the employee. It's even if it's only just a one-off, and they don't do that training again, it's probably going to be of more benefit if they train one person who can then train the many. But they don't. Yeah, they just seem to bypass that, and they don't think that it's important enough to do
Yeah,
that. But
yeah.
yes, what are some strategies, I guess, other than having meetings and getting involved with the training organisation? What other strategies maybe employees could do to help the process?
Right, Rose. As you said, the number one is obviously managers' involvement because they are the centerpiece. Nothing happens in organization without managers taking direct interest and making it happen. But one big piece that came about from my research as well as from practical experience is setting up the ecosystem because employees don't work alone. And more often, we train employees in silos. But employees work with each other. They work with peers. They work with subject matter experts. In some places, they're going to use technologies. In some places, they're going to go to coaches and mentor to seek help. If all these elements are not working with each other with the goal to speed up their development, employees are going to go slow. So part of this strategy is what we recommend is that as a manager, as a leader, as an organization, first thing what you're going to need to do is set up a speed enabling ecosystem in which peers, coaches, mentors, subject matter experts, and technologies, plus managers, of course, all are working in unison. That's number one. Second thing is that we're going to need to coach our employees how to leverage what already exists in organization. If we can avoid reinventing the wheel and know who is the star player who has solved this particular problem, how to connect with that guy directly, and whether I have my manager support. If I don't have a manager support, how to communicate to my manager that I'm going to need this guy's help. Can you connect me? So I think there is a proactive component from employee side to be able to recognize those opportunities. In most cases, the answers are there within organization. Either it is with experts or it is with mentors or the peers. The seasoned team member have already done it. There is no point of reinventing the wheel. If we can leverage that, then employee will be able to produce the outcome in a shorter time. That's one thing. Second part of the equation is technologies, particularly now in pandemic and post-pandemic, technologies are extremely important. If something can be done with technology, we don't need people to do it. People can focus on human skills, human side of the business, automation, and other things which can be done either by technologies automatically or we can leverage the technology when we're doing the work. If we technology can help us when we're doing the work, obviously we need to train our employees how to do it. The employees don't need to learn that stuff upfront. They can learn on the go during the workflow. So these are the two different aspects of the same ecosystem, one from a leadership aspect and from another from employee aspect, how we can encourage them to leverage all of these elements in ecosystem.
It's trying to get though to get everyone playing together nicely, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
and I don't what so what can we do or as employers to make this ecosystem come together and that everyone, all departments play together nicely.
Yeah. In most of the organization, how they do it right is they don't focus on skills or activities. For example, if you give an employee goal, that you're going to make 50 cold calls per day. That's very transactional metrics. But when we give them the goal that your goal is to earn a revenue of $1 million per month, no, equation become different. That employee can possibly earn that much revenue just by making one right call or probably 1,000 cold calls. It doesn't really matter. So what happens is that leaders have to focus, number one, instead of on activities, they need to focus on the outcomes. Because when we give the outcomes to employees and measure employees against the outcomes, then everything else lines up nicely. Then training department managers and other the leaders and everybody in the organization, they don't focus on steps, activities, or skills. They focus on ability to produce outcome. That's the number one philosophical change, I would say, from a leadership standpoint, that needs to happen. But then now it does some wonder it does is, once you know the outcome, now you work backward. You say, okay, in order to produce this outcome, do I need the people to have outstanding negotiation skills? Probably not, because some guys might have great skills in emotional connection with with customers. They may be able to execute that and leverage that skill. Some other people might be able to leverage their analytics to look at the customer database of historical sales and figure out this particular customer always buys in large quantity. Why don't I approach this person? No, the moment we put the outcomes upfront, now they are not going to get into this race of trying to master negotiation skills, sales skills, or other kind of activities. Now they're going to focus on, where do I get this outcome? So once we do this, now leaders can sequence this correctly. So once they sequence the entire journey from zero, when the employee started, to a point where that $1 million sales per month is going to come, when you line up everything, now in that lining process, then they can say, okay, this particular part of the mastery, we can leverage technologies. We got powerful analytics. This particular part of the equation, we can potentially coach our employee using mentors or using peers or subject matter expert. This particular part of the equation, we can potentially leverage contractors or we can outsource this part. So when they look at the entire journey, they will be able to find so much leverage within their own organization that the overall journey will get much shortened. So essentially, 2 points I said is, one is start with the outcome. Second thing is sequence the entire journey, maybe in a more efficient manner.
Makes perfect sense when you explain it, and I think a lot more I think I'll have to send this to different organisations and get them to listen or to watch, because they could probably learn a great deal from just those 2 points, and have a more efficient organisation. And
Thank you.
Raman, you've written 20 multi-genre books on business leadership and training, learning and performance, and you write about human excellence. So can you just, out of those 20 books, maybe pick three that are really standout books that you think that people should buy?
Yeah, certainly. I guess I would rather focus on one book, because that one possibly will handle lots of problems which we are having in the business right now during the pandemic. So during the pandemic, I released this book called Speed Matters. And in fact, it was such a contemporary topic, although I have done the research on this particular topic for last 10 years. But it became so important during pandemic that every single organization and every single leader struggled to speed up their employees' skills. Even many of the employees had this challenge of learning simple skills like operating Zoom software. We're talking about now the complex platforms they need to master, and most of the organization wanted them to master those things very quickly within 2 months or 3 months. The problem with that one was employees have never been coached, managers have never been coached, leaders don't know the mechanism, how to bring that speed in their context, how they can speed up the entire process where employees are uh, equipped with the next generation of skills. And next generation skills are what they're gonna put them in a competitive space. So I wrote this book to educate our executives, leaders, that how do you really start with the speed? Most leaders will use this term called accelerate. They say accelerate digital transform, let's say accelerate skill acquisition. But acceleration does not happen unless you measure it, unless you cut the time out from the equation. So this entire mechanism, how do you measure speed? How do you baseline speed? And how do you cut the time out from equations so that you speed up? So these 3 points, the anchor point, are very important philosophically. Most leaders are not trained because there is not a prevailing science on speed. So I wrote this book more from a science of speed. How do you bring that speed? And this book is mainly for leaders to figure out what kind of mechanism they're going to need to use in their own context, how important the speed is for them, how they can measure it, how where do they stand compared to market. I provided massive data in that book where they can compare relative to the market, where exactly they stand. I produced the data for from about over 40 industries in that book. So that way somebody can know, okay, we take about 2 years to develop our employees to that level, but the market is doing it 1 year. That means we are already 1 year behind them. So that has a direct impact on the business. So I guess that's the most contemporary, more relevant book in today's time.
Wow, sounds really interesting. I think I have to go and grab a copy. Where can you find the book? Is it on Amazon or
It's
bookstore?
yeah, it's on most of the booksellers, bookstores all over the world. But I think most convenient is to find it on Amazon.
Terrific. And where else can they reach you, Raman?
Best way to reach me is my website. It's ramankatri.com. It's my name, ramankatri.com. That's where I have lots of articles, videos, and other learning nuggets. But otherwise, they can find me on the social media. Just need to prefix a DR, Dr. Raman K Attri. That's my handle on most of the social media platforms. So these are the two best ways to reach out to me.
Ah, wonderful. I'm going to go and stalk you on LinkedIn now.
Thank you. Mhm.
Have you got any words of wisdom that you'd like to share?
Yes, certainly. I guess I was going to share my life lesson, which is more focused around clarity. Um, Personally, being disabled, I could have chased motivation or inspiration. And what I realized is that whenever we want to do any transformation, either in business or in our personal or professional life, we chase motivation or inspiration. But unfortunately, that's very short lived. It doesn't stay longer. But instead, if we focus on certain techniques and strategy, which can give us clarity of why we're going to need to do things and what for we're going to do the things. And once we have that kind of clarity, whether we use analytics, data, or we use strategies, or we use any other mechanism to get that clarity, it gives us permanent fuel, sustainable fuel. We don't need any motivation or inspiration. It gives us the direction where we're going to go. So that's the kind of life lesson thought I would share with your audience.
Ah, that's a great life lesson too. Yeah. Motivation, it is short lived. You think, oh yeah, I'll get stuck into this, and then the next day you think, oh God, I can't be bothered. But
That's
you
right.
really need to know why you're doing it. Is what you're doing. It's just not a task that you feel motivated to do just at this moment. So yeah. Um, Raman, I've had a very enjoyable discussion with you. Thank you so much for giving me your time today. And yeah, I will talk to you again soon.
Thank you so much, Rose. It was my pleasure to be at your show. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity as well.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Talking with the experts.